everybody, and welcome to today's virtual field trip. Just a few reminders before we begin. These trips are live and we could experience some technical issues. If that is the case, please be patient as we resolve them. And as always, we welcome and encourage your questions. So Palm Beach County students, please ask your questions in the chat, and everybody else can use the poll everywhere. We hope that you are ready to learn something new and have some fun. Benji and Kylie, go ahead and take it away.
All right.
Hey,
everybody. Okay, so I am so excited today because today we get to show you prescribed fire, how we do it, why we do it, and how we do it safely.
Yeah.
So with me today, I'm Benji. I've got Harper Carroll. He is our burn manager at Palm Beach County Environmental Resources Management. And you guys know Kylie. Kylie's back with us. We're going to be taking you through the next hour, showing you actual fire being put on the ground in real time and answering your questions. It's going to be a ton of fun, but I got to let Harper go right now because he's got to go start the test fire, make sure conditions are what he's expecting, and call the burn a go. And in the meantime, I'm going to introduce you guys to where we are. So Harper, we'll see you in a bit.
Thanks, Harper.
All right, so
Guys, we're someplace special today. I think we might have taken you guys here before, but this is a beautiful, beautiful mixed wetland ecosystem here. This is called Pine Glades Natural Area. It is how many acres?
So 6,600 acres, 6,600 acres. To give you an idea, 600 acres, about 640 acres is 1 square mile, a mile on each side. And so this is about 10 square miles, okay, this natural area. What we're going to be exploring today is putting fire down in a wet prairie community. And so these are communities that are going to burn naturally every 1 to 2 years. Essentially, as soon as enough grass builds up on the ground to carry that fire, that's going to burn. And it's going to burn for 2 reasons naturally, okay, and historically. First of all, is lightning strikes, right?
Yep.
So we are the lightning strike capital of North America, one of the lightning strike capitals of the world. And so those summer thunderstorms, they're going to start fires naturally, okay? And then what is the other reason why Florida has a history of fire on the landscape?
Well, there's just the natural Native American way of life. So they learned that if we burnt this land, it replenished crops and things in the area, anything that they grew or fed on, or for safety as well.
Right, right. And so by burning the land, Native Americans for over 10,000 years have been actually putting down prescribed fire. They have been using prescribed fire to manage the land, to bring in game, to bring in turkey and deer into places where they know they're going to come in because fire was just on the ground. So there's so many reasons why we burn here in Florida, and we do it in a prescribed manner because that way we can control the conditions and make sure we do it safely and keep it, as Harper will tell you, inside the box.
We want everything out here to be as safe as possible. So everything that we're going to be talking about today, even the silly little outfits that we have on today, are truly for our safety and for everyone else's safety around.
All right, so we're going to let Kylie go and we're going to bring back Harper in just a second. Before we do that, I want to address what is going on in California, okay? This is a really important section, all right? We are here in South Florida. What is happening in California and LA right now is a devastating natural disaster. They are dealing with wind conditions, with wind gusts that are up to hurricane force strength. They're dealing with humidities that are extremely low, creating really dry conditions, and they're dealing with a drought right now. And so what they are dealing with are weather conditions where we would never, ever think of putting fire on the ground in a prescribed way. But this is also a good time to learn why Florida is the prescribed fire capital, literally, of the world. So we're not going to be taking questions about California because we are in South Florida. But I will say that what we should be doing is sending all of our love and positivity and thoughts and prayers to all the folks that are out there that are affected, and also all of the first responders, the firefighters, the wildland firefighters. They're doing everything they can to mitigate the damage that is being done out here. So that is section on California, okay? We are not going to be answering questions because that is not our role. But what we want to do is you guys to ask questions about really what we're doing today, why we do it, how we do it safely, and what that means for our community. Because prescribed fire in Florida is essential for 2 reasons. Ecology, it keeps the land healthy, And number two is public safety. And we're going to get into that at the end of the section. All right, so let me bring Harper back in here. And Alicia, I want folks to see what's going on, okay? So we've got fire moving in behind us, and I just want you guys to see that. So Harper, I'm gonna bring Harper in here, and these guys will let us know. So Harper just did a test fire. So Harper, first of all, I know we're going a little out of order here, but what is a test fire? What did you just do?
So a test fire is for me to get a real-time idea of what the fire behavior is going to do with the current conditions that we have right now. And at that same point, I need to think about in the future of the day and of the burn, when conditions change and the humidity might go down, the winds might pick up, that my fire is still going to be safe and still stay in our burn unit. So at this point, I liked what I saw with the fire behavior. I felt that it was good. We were going to meet our objectives and our goals to do the burn today. So I said the burn was a go, proceed with ignition.
All right, so Harper did exactly what a test fire is supposed to do, which is testing the conditions. He feels good about it, which is good for us because that means we're a go for the burn today. All right, so Harper, we're going to step out of the way. We're going to let these guys keep lighting on the way past us.
Benji, there's a question that came in asking how this impacts the environment as far as the air quality.
As far as what?
The ecology.
Oh,
Air
we're going to, as far as ecology, we are going to get into
Air.
that.
Air
What's that?
quality. Air quality.
Air quality.
Air quality, air quality. Okay, so prescribed fire is what Harper will call happy fires. These are low intensity fires. These are burning natural fuels. They're burning grasses, they're burning, vegetation, things like that. Okay. And so this is the important thing to remember is it's a natural process. This is something that happens naturally in Florida, even before Native Americans showed up 10,000 years ago. All right. So it is putting some ash and particulate into the air. But what it is not putting into the air is all of the really nasty stuff that you get during an urban structure fire.
Or a wildfire, we do the fire under certain weather conditions. My goal is to get the smoke up and out, fire done, everybody's safe. If you had a wildfire, the fire will be very hot, put up a lot more smoke, and for a longer period of time. I'm only burning for one day and then I'm done. If the weather conditions aren't good to get that smoke up and out, I'm not burning.
Right. That's a great question and great point and opportunity to talk about it. So right now we're eating a little smoke. There's some sandhill cranes flying over the prairie right behind us. But Harper, what I want to start with real quick is why do we look like we look? We're wearing a whole lot of really interesting gear here. So let's start up top and let's just kind of go down. So we got our hard hats here. What are we wearing hard hats for?
Protect our heads.
Yeah.
A lot of times, maybe not here today, but most of the times we're burning our trees. So if the trees do catch fire, branches fall down, we have a way to protect our heads.
Right. In fact, some of our staff actually went out to Oregon this year and fought some wildfires. And it was really good that they were wearing those hard hats because some of the water drops that you're seeing on TV. Now, we don't do water drops during prescribed fire because, again, think happy fires, low intensity. We're keeping everything in the box. But when you get those explosive wildfires, you see some of that water drops, and that's where you can turn into dangerous situations.
Yep.
So we've got our hard hats here. Now, what else? Got gloves on?
We got gloves. We need to protect. We don't want to touch fire at all. Nothing hot, so our gloves are protecting our hands.
All right, and we've got these really fashionable clothes on. So why do we have these fashionable green and yellow clothes? What's special about them?
Well, because we stand out better. No, so this is Nomex, and it can take a higher degree of temperature before it burns. So unlike cotton, which will burn at lower temperatures, the Nomex will last longer and not burn as quickly.
All right, so we've got some fire retardant clothing on. We've got our hard hats, our gloves. Everybody is wearing one of these big rectangular things. And so what do we got here? Harper's got his on his back. And Harper, what are we wearing?
That is a fire shelter. That is your last resort. It's a little pop tent. We train with them every year. If you get in a tight position where you are going to be in a dangerous spot and you're worried about your life and safety, you will deploy the shelter, crawl under the shelter, and it has extra. It's designed by NASA, so it can take a lot of heat, and you'll hide from the high heat from the fire.
And so fire shelters have saved lives of wildland firefighters, and they're really the last resort. So in a prescribed situation, hopefully no one will ever have to use this, right?
No.
Okay. All right. We've got our leather boots on. Very specifically, our leather boots do not have steel toes. Why is that?
Well, metal and heat.
Right. And so if you're wearing
Don't want
steel-toed
frying pan.
boots and you're walking around in areas that are burning or have just burned, that heat can come into the metal and that'll get your toes really, really hot. So everything is really well thought out as far as what we're wearing. And then finally, you've got your radio there.
My communication is my lifespan or lifeline.
Right. Absolutely. So that's kind of safety equipment. What I want to go into now, guys, is the prescription, and then we'll get into the map of where we are and what you're going to see today on the burn. All right. Thank you, Alicia. Alicia's giving me my time check. So when we burn for ecological reasons and public safety, but we don't do this haphazardly.
Nope.
In fact, what goes into it, you guys know what a prescription is, right? If you go to the doctor, you're sick, he gives you a prescription for medication that's going to make you better, that is not available over the counter. So it's special, right? And that prescription is based on a whole lot of things. So this is Harper's prescription for the fire today. So Harper, there is a ton of information on here, but just, this is, Harper likes to say, a legal document. Okay, his name is on here. He is pulling the permit for this burn. And for every single burn he does, Harper, what do you have to do? Who authorizes these?
The final authorization does come down to the state Florida Forest Service. They're the ones that give me authorization, and they say I'm good to go.
All right, and so what kind of parameters does this prescription cover? We're not going to go through everything, but just talk to me a little bit about burn unit size, objectives, equipment, and then weather.
Yeah, so it has everything that we really need to know before going in to have the burn. It has our area. It has the description, the burn history, the what we're burning, the fuel types, the vegetation. But one of the main things on there is weather, and those parameters are the areas, the numbers that I have to keep in, make sure. If I decide I'm going to burn, I have to be within the range of the certain numbers. So I'm not going to burn when it's too hot or too wet or humidity's too high or too low. Because I have certain goals and objectives I need to meet. Also, I need for it to be safe for my firefighters and safe for our surrounding communities.
Right, and so to give you an idea, we're moving out of the way here. We got equipment going past us. This is a really zoomed out map. We're up here. We're burning number 4. But then if we back out, Alicia, you can see how small this unit is in the overall natural area and landscape. And that's what I'm talking about with a prescription. Harper writes a specific prescription for each of these units that is based on where it is in the landscape and where he wants to send the smoke, because that is the most important.
And
Other than keeping fire in the box, it is managing smoke. So,
Benji, how often do you guys do prescribed fires, and how do you pick the locations that you are going to burn?
So we do prescribed fires as often as we can when everything lines up. So for all of these prescriptions, we've got to have the right weather conditions. We've got to have the right water levels. We've got to have the right fuel moisture. So whenever that lines up, we burn. So this is the unit that we're burning here today. And Harper, why don't you just take us through kind of the weather that you're anticipating and what we're going to do. And I'm just going to kind of draw as you're explaining.
Okay.
So the test fire, where are we?
We're down at A, and we have northeast winds. You can't see it on the map, but we have Indiantown Road, and we have the Jupiter Farm communities to the east. So I want to keep that smoke away from them so I don't have any impacts on the community. So we got a northeast wind, and so we're burning what's down here. Oh, it's all water. So the fire isn't going to go beyond this area. And then, so we started a test fire. Everything was good here. And now the ignition crews are going to be working their way up into the wind.
So say that again, Harper, because that is really important. Where are the ignition crews going again?
They are going towards the wind, so they're going towards the northeast.
Right. And so what are we leaving behind us as we go against the wind?
It's burnt fuel, which is going to, or burnt vegetation, which we call black. So we are bringing this with us and burning as we go. We have more control of the fire. And then if we have issues, we stop ignition, stop lighting stuff, and then just step into the black because it's safe. It's not going to burn. I have fire breaks there. I have water all around us.
All right. So two more things, Alicia, that I want to talk about. Harper mentioned safety zones. So we say LCES, that is lookouts, communication, escape routes, and safety zones. We are always communicating when we're on the fire line. We always know where our safety zones are, and we are always watching out for our fellow wildland firefighters. The last thing that I want to touch on, and we're going to talk about it more when we talk about wildlife at stop number 3, is ecology. A lot of people see wildland areas after prescribed fire, and ideally, there's a lot of burnt vegetation. It is all black, as Harper said. And a lot of people see destruction, but what you're seeing is actually a life force in Florida. We have really, really poor nutrient soils. And so what fire does to the landscape in Florida is it's like nature's fertilizer. All of that ash comes down onto the soil and it replenishes those nutrients. And within weeks, Harper burned an area only last month, and the grass is already this tall coming out of the burn. There's flowers that are already blooming. And so what you're seeing when you see prescribed fire on the ground is actually nature's way of fertilizing the land and regrowing that ecological community. We're going to go on the truck. We're going to move to our second spot, and this will be a good time for questions.
As you're moving, can you talk to us about the animals in that area? What happens to them? And if you happen to see an animal that's struggling, do you help them?
Yeah, so we're gonna talk about animals at stop number 3. So we're gonna get really, really well into it. But the really main thing that we need to keep in mind with wildlife, and I'll pick it back up on the other side of the brush unit here.
Benji, I don't know if you can hear me, but there's another question about ash. They want to know what happens with the ash as far as the area. Does it bother, I guess, people that might be living near it and even the animals?
No, again, this is a life force. Every single animal and plant that lives on this landscape naturally has evolved not only to survive with prescribed fire, but also, to thrive with prescribed fire. Again, it is really important that if you take nothing else away from today, that you take away when we burn in a prescribed manner, this is a life force for wild Florida, a life force for natural Florida. Everything about it is positive. Now, you were asking about wildlife. We're going to get into that. One of the misconceptions that we think about with animals is we think animals are stupid. And it couldn't be further from the truth. This is their home. They know exactly where they are. They have evolved again for millions of years to understand what to do when they smell smoke. They know exactly where to go. They get out of the way of the fire. Just like we are always keeping in mind our safety zones, so is that wildlife. They're getting to their safe zones. And after the fire passes, within hours, you will see animals like sandhill cranes with little baby chicks on the ground, cannot fly yet, can only walk, and they're coming back into that burn area to go forage on the insects and everything else that was left behind by the prescribed fire. So, yes, there are, and there's some sandhill cranes in the background right now, literally dancing, which is just so cool.
They're not scared at all.
Okay, so we're about to be at
Location 2.
location 2. So any questions while we kind of walk over there?
It's okay.
No, there's no questions that would fit in this section right now.
Sweet.
Okay.
You guys have good questions so far. Keep them coming.
All right, guys. So I'm going to say bye to you. I'm going to leave you with Kylie and Harper, and they're going to take you onto the fire line. And Harper's going to kind of explain a little bit more about how we keep this fire in the box.
We at where the drip torch is?
No.
Oh, later.
Yeah.
So this is one of those things where we expect this vegetation as we're looking around us to burn really quickly. We were also kind of scared today that it might go too quickly. So what's pretty cool is that you can see maybe out in the distance where the fire is, where that smoke is, and it's going to slowly be moving towards us against that wind, right? But in a situation like this fire with this vegetation could really take off, couldn't it, Harper?
Yeah, with the stuff we burned earlier today, the other large areas, it burned very well, and it's grass. So just like in your campfire, it's gonna blow up really quick and then die down pretty quick. So it's your fine fuel. So it doesn't have a long resident time of burning and heat. So once it comes through, it's done quickly.
So looking at the vegetation of the land, that can kind of tell us how it's going to burn. So for example, when the fire reaches over there, I see some, pickerel weeds, some wetland vegetation. Is it going to burn the same as this other fuel?
No. You want me to talk about the fire triangle?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious.
All right, let's form a triangle.
Triangle with our hands.
There's three sides to the triangle, right? So the three sides, one is fuel, which is vegetation. The other one is oxygen, which is the air we breathe. The third one is heat. So if we take one of those away, Kylie, can you take one of the sides away? That's how we control the fire. So right now,
this to this.
yes. So right now we know downwind where the fire's going, way down there where Carrie and Drew, that's going to water. So what's missing? We can't get rid of the oxygen, can't get rid of the air, but we can get away from the we won't have any fuel down there. There'll be water. Sorry, it's
Which is super great. So in an area like this, when you're trying to plan a burn, it's almost a safety net to know that there's water nearby.
Yeah, I use natural fire break. So what's a fire break? It's for breaking where the fire is going to be. Like a road, that's a fire break.
So that's a great idea. So let's play a hypothetical here. Let's say we didn't have the lovely water to help protect our fire running through here so that we know that it can't go too far. Let's say we're surrounded 20 feet in between by two management roads. How do we control a fire then?
Well, we have management roads.
So that'll stop the fire?
The management roads stop the fire. Also what we do is what happens when we burn it? What are we taking away, Kylie, when we burn something out here?
The fuel.
The fuel.
Yeah.
So that's one of the sides.
Oh. So I've heard a term like building the black or backing fire. What does that mean in a situation like that? What is building the black?
So building the black, as we walk along, we're creating black behind us. So I'm making a larger and larger fire break. Yeah. So the fire's going to stop. As we go further along, building more intensity. So they're building black down there. Downwind from them, not only is there black they're building, but there's water. So the fire is not going anywhere at all. Also, that's a great safety zone because if you have an issue right there, Kylie, yeah, all you have to do is step right here.
And I'm safe?
Well, for the most part, you're safe. It depends on how hard the wind's coming at you, but you're in a fire break. And
so, another question I have then is how does fire naturally move? Is it just fed by wind or are there other factors that play into how fire moves?
Well, it depends on what your fuel and what your wind are. So if you have lots of oxygen, like you're blowing on a candle, or a campfire, you need to have that air to get the campfire going, right?
Yeah.
But if you have too much, it might blow it out. But then if the fire's lit and gives you lots of oxygen, it might move the fire too fast. That's why I have certain wind speeds. If it's too windy, I'm not burning.
So in the middle of a fire like we're doing today, if the wind is too intense, you'll just call it off?
I'll shut it off. We'll stop lighting. We have the black right there. I have those two engines down there. We'll work in the road. We'll put water down and box the wire in. Let the fire burn to us. Because we don't want to go out there and put it out. We're working really hard, right? So we create that black, let it burn to us, have a good stopping point, and then we put it out.
Is there any vegetation that we would ever avoid burning?
All in Florida, all vegetation and habitats are shaped in some way
To be fire
by
dependent.
fire. So even your cypress domes, they were clean. Sometimes fire went through a cypress dome during the drought season, cleaned out the shrubs on the edges. Um, there is no real areas that I would say that I would keep fire out. Even an oak hammock, which isn't going to burn, you're still maintaining those edges, leaving it open for the deer to walk in and out, to forage, and giving that diversity of habitat.
So what protects an oak hammock from burning?
Well, the what's in the shade? How do you feel in the shade?
Cool.
You feel cool, right?
I guess they hold more like moisture as well, right? We learned that in our last virtual live, right, you guys? How the hardwood hammocks, kind of the oak forest, they hold all this moisture where all those epiphytes and lichens were there. So that holds all that moisture in where it's going to be less, it's more resistant to burning, to fire. Or something like this. You guys, I seriously expected this fire to rip to us. This stuff is so dry. All these grasses, you see all this? So once this lights up, it'll just go, but it's really taking its time. And it's not here to us yet.
Can you guess why?
The wind is stronger than the fire can move?
No. What time of day is it?
Oh, late in the afternoon. So it's not as hot.
Where's the sun?
Down.
So what's
See,
happening?
Harper's leading me to the answer, you
What's
guys.
happening to the humidity?
It's rising.
It's rising.
So
water burn.
let's discuss that for a minute, though. So in a humidity situation, what are the parameters that you have to exist in? Like, when is it too humid? Is even now considered too humid?
No, it's just getting cooler. Is the humidity is rising. When we were burning earlier today, it was in the 50s. But sometimes 50 might be too low, depending on the vegetation I'm burning. So this, I knew it was all safe. I had lots of water. It was grass. It was going to burn quick. I made black. I had the water. I burned into it. It was fine. It needed that because it was a wet prairie. It was a little bit wet. So it needed that lower humidity to burn. Sometimes I don't want to touch anything in 50s. But then also, if it's too high, it won't burn at all. And that's one of the hard parts when I start the burn at the test fire. The humidity is really high in the morning. Like when you come out,
Yeah,
and
first thing.
there's dew on your car.
Yep.
That's your high humidity.
That makes sense. Everyone's kind of experienced that. So this fire isn't moving as we was expected. I've said this probably a couple times. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually move back towards the fire, everyone.
Kylie, we have some questions. If maybe Harper could answer before he walks completely away.
Yeah.
Harper.
All right. So they have a question about if there was ever a time that you ever had a fire that you were unable to.
Fire you were
Did you
unable
ever
to
lose
control.
a fire?
Oh no. No. I am very, very conservative on picking that right day. It's almost like Goldilocks, right? A little too hot, a little too cold, just right. So I do not risk losing a fire. If I feel like if I thought that test fire was not going to be calm or I was going to lose it, that gives me the opportunity just to shut it down right then. So no.
So that's I think that's a really good this real quick. That's a really, really good question. And then Harper, I just want to talk about, because I was lucky enough before I got into, outreach and communication and all this, I was with Harper on the fire team. I've got 35 burns under my belt. Now I remember when you hit that witching hour in that 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock zone.
Right.
So I remember a fire that we did up at Cypress Creek, and conditions looked good in the morning. We had the test fire, we started, and then all of a sudden we were getting some spot overs. Now, spot overs aren't necessarily like, if you get a spot over, now what's a spot over?
So spot over is basically the fire might jump over the line.
Right. And that's why.
So the line like here?
So if this is on fire right now, the brush trucks that are out there, and the fire isn't that intense, they're trying to make it go a little bit more intense, but the trucks are there in case something jumps the road, they hop on it real quick. They're also, the brush trucks are cooling down this vegetation, which they probably don't need to do because the fire intensity is pretty low, to keep and be prepared, make sure there isn't any spot fires.
Right. So that's a spot fire. If a spot fire goes from the side of the line we're burning over to the side of the line we don't want to burn, that's called a spot over. That's why we have the suppression crew. A whole half of our burn team is just focused on making sure that there are not any spot fires. And then if there are, they're on them immediately. They put them out. They report it to Harper so he knows what's going on. Back to that burn in Cypress Creek. All of a sudden, we were getting some wind action that was higher than we expected. We were getting some humidities that were really dropping, and we were getting a few spot overs. And then what happened there where you were making the call?
Well, we went ahead and put the spot fires out. I didn't like what the smoke was doing because the smoke was going. If the smoke is going where I don't want it to burn, Harper's not happy. Because usually if that smoke is going there, that means there could be an ember going there. I didn't like what's happening. We didn't feel right. I went ahead and I shut it down. We stopped ignition. I actually called fire rescue out. This is the only time I've had to do this. And they helped me mop up the fire. And we had a good talk with the crew afterwards. I let them know why I made that decision. And we went home.
And so that is a great example of what the decisions Harper has to make in real time in the moment based on the weather conditions and what he's seeing. He got to a point where all of a sudden he could foresee if he continued a situation he didn't like. And so he shut it down. That's a really important thing to remember. I remember when I told my wife I was going to burn the woods with you, and she said, "No, you are not. That's dangerous." But because we're doing this in a prescribed manner, because we're controlling where we light and building black behind us, Harper can do that. He can make that call, say, "Okay, I'm calling the burn, I'm shutting it down," and we can actually stop that fire kind of mid-fire.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. It's a great question. Okay, guys, we're going to walk this way, but do you have any other questions, Heather?
Yeah,
Because we
we
want to
have
get you
one
guys down and seeing fire.
Yeah, we have one that may be a very hypothetical question, but if there was a time where the prescription conditions were not well and we couldn't burn that area for, say, years at a time, what impact would that have on our ecosystem years from now?
So, I mean, that is a wonderful, wonderful question. So Harper's entire philosophy is with our natural areas, we implement fire. And once we have put fire on the ground, then that area is a priority to burn again because we want to maintain that fire interval. The fact is, when we purchased some of this land and started to manage it, a lot of it had been fire suppressed, sometimes for decades. And so what we have to do in those situations is actually do some things that look really bad to some people, but it's actually restoring the land. So we're going to get past this swamp buggy right here, and I'll tell you about that.
So you guys, on this swamp buggy, some of you at home might be listening. This is a bunch of Palm Beach County School teachers. If you guys want to give a little wave, your teacher might be on this buggy right now watching the prescribed burn live and in action.
Hi, everybody. Kylie, we have another question. If you could go ahead and retouch on this. I know it was touched on.
Kylie, they have a question for you.
Yeah, what's up, you guys?
If we could retouch on it, I know it was touched on, but just to make sure, whether we do it now or throughout, can we re-hit what those benefits are of impact for the environment of why we do the prescribed fire?
Yeah, so we'll hit on it a couple more times, but I can't help but say it again, you know. First of all, it's the ecological benefit of returning nutrients to the soil. Another one is safety, not only for the environment itself from a massive burn. Let's say we have a bunch of fuel on the ground in this beautiful pine flatwood like we see over here. What will end up happening is that fuel will burn really, really hot, and it could even possibly burn down those bigger trees, ruining the ecosystem as it was. So we do it to maintain ecosystems so that there's no large wildfires, as well as public safety, which we'll talk on that later. So there's a lot of surrounding communities, as we learned here earlier. So the safety for those communities from wildfires occurring.
Right. So let's get back into that. You know, if we've got decades of fire suppression from an area that is meant to burn every few years. What we get, Harper, is palmetto bushes that are over our heads.
Yep.
We get pine trees that are way too dense.
Yep.
So then what do we have to do before we can even, because we're not going to put fire on the ground, because that's like lighting a match on a gas tank.
Usually if it took, however long it took that property to get that way, usually if you have to take that bandage off and it's going to take you that long to get it. Well, Palm Beach County is fortunate enough that we accelerate that restoration project. So we go in and use maybe not the prettiest of tools, but we'll go in and log, we'll thin it out, we'll prepare the burn unit so it can accept fire a lot easier and protect the trees and be a less intensive fire when we do burn it.
So we actually, what we use is like an enormous forestry size industrial lawnmower, and we mow that palmetto down to the ground. Okay, that doesn't kill the palmetto because it's still alive in the rhizomes, it resprouts, but we knock that palmetto down to the ground. The other thing we do, Harper, you heard him say logging, and a lot of people might say, oh my gosh, why are you cutting trees down into natural area? With fire suppression, we might have tree densities of 400 pine trees an acre when we really want 20 or 30 pines an acre. So we can't put the fire on the ground in that dense scenario. And so we've actually brought loggers in to thin the pines out, taking the less mature, younger pines out. And that is what prepares the site to, like Harper said, accept the fire back again.
So as you guys can see, we're getting some fire now here.
Okay, so can we go over to Drew and maybe, because I want you guys to see what Kylie was talking about with the backing fire. So if we can come over here to Drew and Kylie, if you can go with Harper and just talk about the backing fire and actually see it on the ground.
Harper, when we talked about the backing fire, it's almost a safety thing, right? So give us a little brief review of the backing fire. What is the purpose of it?
So right now we're creating a, well, this isn't necessarily a backing fire, but
I mean, half of it is, right?
half of it is, you know, one dot of fire is doing everything. There's a little bit of backing, so it's burning into the wind. The backing fire is going to be lower intensity. Okay, so it's into that wind. There's a flanking fire which is going sideways with the wind. Then the head fire, which is the most intense, is getting pushed by the wind.
So in that case, someone like Drew with their drip torch, they'll build up the fire line, increasing the fire at a high head fire so then it backs up.
So if you look down there, they want to keep the fire inside this road. It is backing a little bit. The wind is giving it a little bit more oxygen, and it'll slowly creep. As we progress along and we feel that everything's safe, which you can't really see the flames down there, but you see a little more smoke, that's becoming more of a head fire. It's being pushed by the wind.
That makes sense.
Oh, I think we've got, yeah, up here we'll be able to, here you go, Kylie. We'll be able to see a little more of this fire technique, but let's talk about wildlife and let's talk about invasives because
We do have a question just before you get into that part. How long does this normal process take for a burn, depending on the area, like smaller areas versus larger? What's the general time frame?
Helicopter.
it totally depends on how we put fire on the ground. So today, we're burning with hand torches. We've got people with hand torches that are literally going and putting fire on the ground, dragging fire with their hands. We also, earlier today, Harper's ignition crew was lighting off fire with a flame torch from a swamp buggy, right? So the swamp buggy is moving along the line, and then that torch on the back of the buggy is able to light a little more efficiently.
Yeah, it's shooting fire out. Yeah.
Right. And so, if we are doing a normal burn on a normal day in this kind of community, but we're doing it from the ground, we're probably shooting for somewhere in the 200 to 300 acres.
Correct. That's
a day.
It's a good number. Yes.
Right. Now, that all changes when Harper lights fires from a helicopter.
Yes.
So yes, we do prescribe fire by lighting fires from a helicopter. So Harper, can you explain that a little bit? What do we put into the helicopter that actually makes this work?
So the helicopter has a machine it drops. Actually, we use ping pong balls. They are filled with potassium permanganate, and then they're injected with glycol. And as they inject, balls drop from the helicopter. And while they do that, it takes about, depending on the temperature, humidity conditions, it'll take about 10, 20 seconds to ignite. And then the helicopter goes along, same way the hand torches are doing, the buggy torches, it builds black into the wind, and we can burn 1,000 acres an hour.
1,000 acres an
1,000
hour.
acres an hour.
So it is pretty amazing that Harper and his crew can actually do this.
I don't think you guys understand how epic that is. He is in a helicopter with somebody that is shooting essentially a ping pong machine gun of little inflammable ping pong balls, and it burns
1,000 acres.
1,000 acres an
The
hour.
whole idea is to get that smoke
And that's
coming
all
out
in
of it.
control. That's all safe. That's all monitored. There's a ground crew and everything. That's phenomenal. Look at us surrounded by fire now.
Want your job.
Yeah.
It's not fun at all.
Speaking of, we have a question about what kind of training do we need to have these types of jobs?
That's a great question.
Such a good question. So, Harper, first of all, I love this question, especially when we're talking to you guys. Harper, do you need a college degree to be a wildland firefighter?
No.
No.
That's a clear no, you guys. You do not have to have a college degree to do this.
So, what kind of training do you have to go through just to be on the crew?
So there's some, I don't want to say basic, but at the lower tier of training to become a wildland firefighter. And then as you move along, you go higher and higher and higher to more training. So I'm a state certified burn boss. So I had to do a lot more training for that. But you can get a high school degree. You take your basic wildland firefighting classes. You could go work for the Florida Forest Service. We have some folks out here. They're helping us out with the burn today. They just have a high school education.
Right. And then there's all kinds of different training levels that you can go to. So Harper is the one who can actually write the prescriptions, pull the permits to do the prescriptions, and be the burn boss, the incident commander on the burn. And then there's even higher levels, especially when you get into wildland firefighting, where you're trying to fight wildfires. And then you get into things like your red card, right?
Yeah.
So so if you get red card certified, we're going to walk and talk here. If you get red card certified, what that means is that you can go be on a wildland wildfire crew, but that involves things like physical fitness tests, pack tests, where you've got to, hike for how many miles?
It's 3 miles, 45 pounds, 45 minutes.
So you got 45 minutes to go 3 miles with 45 pounds on your back.
Can you explain what we're walking through right
Right now, we're actually getting some of the backing fire that Kylie was looking for earlier. So
Line now.
yeah, so this is the fire line. This is the fire break. This is where we're building our black. The vegetation is now starting to cooperate with us a little
So
bit
now
more.
that we're looking at this is called building the black here along the management road. Harper?
Yes.
Okay, so what you guys see here, how all the way up along the trucks, this is that building the black. So this is going to be a safe area. This is to help reduce that jumping that they were talking about from across over to the other side.
The fire's going in.
Slowly but surely.
because it has no.
Has no fuel. Come on, you guys could have answered that. It has no fuel anymore. Come on, you guys, let's get in the fire.
Now you get one.
Yeah, and it's like snow.
Get it?
So you guys, Benji was going to tell you guys a little bit about wildlife. I know a lot of people are super concerned about what happens with wildlife. Now, if you were somewhere and there was a raging fire, you would probably run away from it, right? Our animals do the same things. there's all different species of animals that do all different things that they need to get away. Some are flying away, some are scurrying and getting under the ground. Things like gopher tortoises, box turtles, they're going to stay under the ground. This fire is not that intense of a fire where it's going to impact them. Wildfires are kind of a different story, but we're doing those to control wildfires from happening. So all the different wildlife can actually get away. One of Benji's favorite things to tell, and I'm going to steal it from him since I'm here with you guys right now, is that diamondback rattlesnakes, one of Florida's venomous species of snakes, actually learn to ride the fire line and look for little rodents and lizards and different frogs and amphibians that run out of the fire, and they'll just snatch them up. So they literally use prescribed fire, wildfires as a benefit to their own hunting. Pretty sick, if you ask me. You like my burn?
Okay.
Ooh.
All right, come on, guys. Let's keep coming up here.
Keep rolling on fire.
Now, another thing to point out, why is the fire not carrying like we really want it to? Well, one of the reasons is that one of our invasive animal species, wild hogs, have come into this area and they have turned over the soil. They've rooted the soil up. And what happens when the hogs root the soil up? That reduces the continuous fuel, that continuous grass.
You guys ever go on a nature walk and you're on a lovely trail and all of a sudden you're like, why do I feel like this was just tilled by a tractor? That's from a hog, and
Right.
They are gnarly with it. There's basically no vegetation.
And so when you end up hitting those areas where hogs have rooted the vegetation, turned it over, put soil on top, then that impacts our fire.
That's a fire break.
Right. That's one of the sides of the triangle is gone now because you don't have that fuel. All right. So let's also talk about a couple of the species. Yeah. We're going to keep moving. I want to talk about one of the species of wildlife that actually depends on fire, cannot survive without it.
Benji, speaking of particular species, can you do us a favor? We have some very interested returning virtual field trip participants that would like to know about opossums and fire. Are they safe?
Hang on 1 second.
Say that again, Heather.
I said we have some returning virtual field trip participants that are concerned about opossums and their
How possums do in fire.
Oh, opossums. So, do you know where opossums go in fire? So first of all, and this is really, really important, guys.
I'm listening.
Turn the microphone all the way. Woo! Okay. So that backing fire is moving slowly. It is the part that is moving against the wind. Animals, even opossums, will smell that smoke from way far away. Okay, I think that's good, Ann.
Many moving parts.
So, sorry we got to move, guys, but when the fire doesn't act exactly like we wanted it to,
Remember, we're here to
what
be safe.
happens is we've got to listen to the bosses, the fire managers, and get out of their way. So, Jennifer, excuse me, I'll get down here. So, the question about the opossums, Alicia, I'll let you get down. Opossums, just like every other animal, are going to know where they are on the landscape because it is their home. And as soon as they smell fire, they're going to do something like move away from that smell, move to a wet area, go up a tree, and get away. We I think I have seen one torched rattlesnake in 35 fires. I have never seen an opossum get impacted by prescribed fire. Because remember, this isn't a raging wildfire that animals can't move away from. This is
A happy fire.
It's a happy fire. It's a happy fire. All right. So Harper, we saw your spirit bird, which is the crested caracara. They rely on this open landscape that is maintained by fire. But here at Pine Glades, because you guys have reintroduced fire onto the landscape, we have seen this incredible resurgence of the namesake, right? Like, so what is this bird called I'm talking about here?
Firebird.
Right. So the firebird, I don't know if you guys could hear that, Heather, but the firebird is the bobwhite quail. Okay, the bobwhite quail in the last 50 years, its population has decreased by 80%. And what's the big reason for that?
Lack of fire.
Right. Because with lack of fire, what happens to the landscape?
Gets shrubby and shades out the grass.
Right. And these are birds that nest on the ground. They spend almost their entire life on the ground, picking up seeds and insects and things like that. But they rely on this very open, fire maintained landscape. That's why they're called the firebird. And so they haven't been hunted to an 80% reduction. They just don't have the habitat to reproduce because, you know, in much of their native range, fire has been suppressed.
Right.
But as soon as we put fire back on the land here, what do you hear?
Bobwhite quail.
Yeah. So
Do your call.
yeah, so they do the, and that's a bob white, bob white. And so that is the sound of this bird. You can hear it every morning and evening during the summertime when they're nesting. Oh, this is dramatic. Alicia, come here, come here, come here. All right, so I want you guys to see that. So Drew is over here, and you see the side of the fire that Drew is on. You see how that's backing? Backing meaning it's moving very slowly against the wind. You see where the smoke is going away from Drew, and that is the head fire. So that is the fire that is moving faster with the wind. And so this is the whole point, guys. You're getting to see this towards the end of the burn. They've built up enough black downwind, and now they can start actually putting head fires to burn into that black that they've created. This is the dramatic part, guys.
So guys, essentially it's like baby fires to start until you feel like it's safe enough to really let it rip into that black that we already burnt. So again, everything here is safety controlled. This is a happy fire.
Come on, out of the way.
Woo! Backing up. Hold on. Tactics.
It's going quick now.
Woo!
Hang on for the ride, you guys. Hang on.
All right, we got questions?
I'm good.
Heather, you still there? Do we have any questions?
No questions at the moment. We are just going through some stuff with the students that are asking things in the chat, but nothing vital to the field trip at the moment. You guys are doing a great job answering everything.
All right, so
I know that we don't have too much time left with you guys. And one of the big questions I always have when we're doing these kinds of things is, do we put this fire out, or does this fire put itself out, or what do we do? Harper, do you have an answer for that?
That's a great question.
So, right, we just burnt pine glades on fire.
right.
And we need to, at some point, go home to our families and dogs and cats and birds and children, in your case.
Right.
What?
Go back
How do you know that this is okay to leave?
Go back to your fire triangle.
Yeah. So, okay, we claim that we reduced all the fuel, right?
Fuel's gone.
So then we can just walk away if all the fuel's gone?
We'll watch it.
There we
If there's
go.
any
This is what I
fuel,
want to
if
hear.
there's any flames, we have the truck, 300 gallons in each of the truck. We'll
Of
come
water?
along. Yes, they
Okay.
have water. They might even have some foam in there, and we call it
What's
mopping
foam?
up. Well, like bubbles in your bath.
That helps smother the fire?
It does really well.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that.
Because what does it take away?
Smother it.
The oxygen.
The oxygen.
Right, so
You guys,
let's talk
I'm
about some of
learning
this-
today too.
Let's talk about some of this equipment. This is a drip torch, guys. This is what you're seeing our wildland fire managers using to put fire on the ground. This is a mix of gasoline and diesel.
Right.
It comes out here, you light this wick, so this is your torch, and then you turn it over. And Craig has messed with us completely.
We're getting pranked. This is not normal. There it goes.
All right, so torch is here, it's lit, and then I can drop fire on the ground. Now, how do we mop up? Well, Harper is going to take this flapper, which is just a piece of rubber, and he's going to take one of the sides.
Which side is he taking out, everybody? Oxygen.
So if you can imagine, even on wildland firefighting crews, a lot of those guys are carrying around flappers and rakes and axes. so that they can strategically take one of those legs off of that fire triangle and stop that fire. And that is what we're doing when we're mopping up, so that we can make sure we can leave this in a safe place and make sure that it doesn't go outside of the box. What's that we got?
26.
Okay.
Benji, we do have a question that came in.
That's
So
great.
when there's areas that there's more public around, more residential areas, when do you feel obligated to notify the public to alleviate concerns from them about burn, smoke, ash, anything?
So I'll let Harper hit on that, but it is no matter if there's a bajillion public members around or not, everyone within a how large of a radius is notified of this fire.
So
Pretty large, right?
pretty big. Yes. So either we send out a notification every year saying, hey, there's a possibility we're going to burn pine glades this year. If you want to be on a list to be called the day of, call us and we'll email you the day of the burn, because I don't know till that morning that we're going to burn. But then the day of the burn, I also send out posts, emails, and Facebook. If anyone has any questions, they call us. So basically all of Jupiter Farms community, which is to our east, most of them on this side towards us, probably within a half mile, got some kind of notification today if they wanted it. Now, if they don't care about it, they're good with it. But also, which way is my smoke going?
Away from the community, which is how he's going to do it almost every single time, unless for some reason something happens in the moment. And then at that point, he stops the fire. So again, everything is constantly moving in these fires. That's a great question, though. The public is notified at any chance that we can possibly do so. So very, very good question.
All right, so I want to end. We've got like 2 minutes left on a couple of key points here that we covered today. Okay, Alicia's saying 3 minutes, and then we can get to hopefully some final questions. But number one, fire is a life force in Florida. The ecology, these wild lands, the animals that use them, they need this fire to be on the ground. So we burn to actually restore and replenish wild Florida, the land, and the land that these animals that live here call home in a healthy way. Number two, that wildlife is well suited and adapted to deal with prescribed fire, especially Harper, because prescribed fire is not a raging fire. It is
Happy fire.
it is a happy fire. Okay.
This is a happy fire.
That's right. So they are evolved to deal with these kinds of fires. So the wildlife not only needs this fire, but they can avoid it. And number three, the other reason we burn is for public safety. Without burning these lands, fuel builds up over time. And then if we get a lightning strike ignition, it becomes explosive and it becomes a wildfire that is much harder to
That's
control.
an unhappy fire. Completely out of our control.
Sometimes it gets a little too happy, but it is going out. This is what I said earlier. It can get hot and explosive because it's flashy fuels the grass. It's going to go up really quick. But then you see, look, it's already starting to die down. Right now Harper and I are sitting here, standing here. Even though we got big flame lengths going this way, we can feel this heat. We know because of the wind direction that we're okay here because the wind's going to take the fire that way and the fire is just going to flank towards us and creep really low. So again, we burn for ecology, we burn for public safety, and we burn for those animals, and those animals are so well suited to deal with fire. Any questions before we go?
I know, but you got the sunset.
Oh, that's it. Everyone's had a great time, and we've enjoyed learning about prescribed fire and how it's beneficial.
All right, until next time, guys, I also want to say, let's point the camera at this wildland firefighters, this crew of amazing folks. Craig is out here. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Carrie.
Happy birthday, Craig.
Thank you, Kim.
All right, these are the folks that are doing this. They're putting the fire on the ground safely and making sure that Wild Florida is better going forward than it has been in the past. We will see you guys in what, a couple of months?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go visit an estuary.
I think March.
Harper, thank you for what you do. Thank you for letting us be here with you, for sharing it with us. We will see you guys
Doesn't he
in a
have one of
couple
the
of months.
coolest jobs ever? Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.